Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people out there watching this right now that have already put their order in for the Mini 3 Pro or are thinking about putting the order in for the Mini 3 Pro. And more likely than not, there's going to be a whole bunch of people watching this that have already ordered it. But if you're like me and haven't ordered it yet, I've got the Mini 2. I'm sort of tossing up, obviously, between the Air 2S, because the Air 2S is absolutely fantastic. I did a review on that months and months ago when it first dropped. And the Mini 3 Pro is just on another level. But there are obviously a few pros and cons if you're going to be choosing the Air 2S or the Mini 3 Pro. We're going to be discussing that in this video and hopefully get you guys to decide whether you're going to be buying the Mini 3 Pro or whether I'm going to be buying the Mini 3 Pro. Or if you've bought the Mini 3 Pro, it'll probably, validate yourself on if this is going to be a great purchase. What's going on, my friends? I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. My name is Jason. If you're new to my channel, I do a whole bunch of tips, tricks, tutorials on filmmaking and photography, and occasionally some drone stuff. It's been a while since I've done some drone stuff, mainly for the fact that there hasn't really been many releases, except for the Mavic 3 Pro, which I didn't really do a review on. I ended up getting it before the release date, and there are a few sort of things that weren't upgraded in the firmware, and I just ended up not doing the review. Anyway, we're going to be comparing the Air 2S versus the Mini 3 Pro, mainly for the fact that these are very, very similar price points. Now, I would compare the Mini 2 to the Mini 3, but obviously the Mini 3 is better in pretty much every single way than the Mini 2. So let's talk about the key factors why you might actually consider the Air 2S or the Mini 3 Pro. Now, the Mini 3 Pro has the biggest advantage, and that comes to the sub 250 gram drone. This is massive in certain regions where you actually have to get a drone license if it's over 250 grams. When it comes to certain regions under 250 grams, all you need to do is register it. I think you have to pay a little fee. You're way to go. You don't need a license at all. It makes it so much easier. If you do have a drone that's over 250 grams, like the Air 2S, then you obviously need to go a step up, get some sort of license, depending on obviously what region you're in, and it just makes it a little bit more difficult to fly. Now, obviously the price is the biggest difference as well. $12.99 for the Air 2S and about $9.09 for the Mini 3 Pro. That's including obviously the Fly More combo or, that new remote that it comes with. Now, that is a big factor between the Air 2S because you obviously have to put your phone in here, whereas the Mini 3 Pro has the screen inbuilt. Now, in terms of the specs, they both have very similar range with the OcuSync. In terms of the camera, the Air 2S has a 1-inch sensor. The Mini 3 Pro has a 1/1.2-inch sensor, which is almost a 1-inch sensor. So they're pretty much very similar size sensors. The Air 2S is actually a 20 megapixel 5.4K sensor, whereas the Mini 3 Pro is a 48 megapixel sensor, but can only shoot 4K at 60 frames per second. Now, obviously, they both can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, 1080 at 120 frames per second, but the biggest difference when it comes to the image is the 10-bit codec that's in the Air 2S. So if you are massive when it comes to color grading, 10-bit is a massive difference between 8-bit cameras. 8-bit gives you 16 million different colors, 10-bit gives you almost 1 billion different colors. That is obviously a massive difference, especially when it comes to changing colors, sky gradients, all those kind of things. Having 10-bit is a definite must with video these days. Now, I think one of the biggest factors for the Mini 3 Pro that is actually better than the Air 2S is that it can actually shoot portrait mode. Now, Reels is a big thing when it comes to TikTok and Instagram. So Reels with your portrait format, 9:16, that is a massive thing for content creators these days. And especially if you are only just sharing this to social media, having the Mini 3 Pro is going to be very advantageous because you're not going to be wasting so much real estate. You can actually physically flip the camera around to portrait mode and you're going to be seeing a lot more, pretty much what you're going to be seeing in your Instagram Reels or your TikTok Reels. So that is a really good thing for content creators who actually do that sort of social media videos. Now, another big one is that fast aperture. f1.7. The Air 2S only has an f2.8, obviously doesn't let in as much light. f1.7 is a larger aperture, which lets in a little bit more light, which generally would give you better depth of field and low light performance. And obviously depth of field is relative to the distance from you and the subject. And obviously drones are generally too far away to see that much depth of field. But if you do fly past things, that's where depth of field can actually make a difference, because if you fly past something, the subject in the foreground could be blurred, the background could be in focus. It just gives you a little bit more subject separation, a little bit more depth to the image. Now, the Mini 3 Pro is the first Mini to actually have sensors on there, so that is a massive thing, and what a lot of people wanted the Mini 2 to have, because sensors are very important, especially for beginner drone pilots, because they're going to be flying near subjects, and having sensors there can obviously stop you from crashing into a whole bunch of things. So that is really good for the beginners. Now, I think one of the minor cons about the Mini 3 Pro is actually the internal storage. It's only it's just over 1 gigabyte. It's pretty much nothing. You're going to be taking a whole bunch of photos and that's about it. You probably won't be able to record too much video, mainly for the fact that it does 150 megabits per second in 4K 60. I think the Air 2S also is 150 megabits per second. So they are very similar bit rates in terms of, data, but the difference is 8-bit in this and 10-bit in the Air 2S. Now, overall, I think this is going to come down to that sub 250 category. Obviously, the Mini 3 Pro is much more portable and compact, and you can throw it into a backpack very easy. The Air 2S is just that little bit bigger when it comes to portability. Obviously, it's not as portable. It is still a very, very small drone and very capable. But having that sub 250 drone is obviously good depending on where you are. I know European regions, you must be flying sub 250. I think in the States now, what is it, sub 250 as well? So it is a pretty big thing when it comes to drone laws pretty much everywhere in the world right now. But let me know in the comments below, are you going to get this drone, or have you actually got this drone? What are your thoughts on the Mini 3 Pro? What are your thoughts on the Mavic 3 Pro? And what are your thoughts on the old Air 2S? Do you think there's going to be another drone dropping soon when it comes to the Air 2 line? Potentially, but I think the Mini 3 Pro is a fabulous drone and I really do recommend it, and I do think it's going to be a really good option for a lot of content creators. 10-bit or 8-bit doesn't really matter in the end, because you're still going to get some really nice images. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. That would be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel already if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.